Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome to a busy week of Judd's Hockey Show. I foresee a Monday show. I foresee a Tuesday show, the start of free agency, 11 a.m. on Tuesday. I foresee a Wednesday show with Jesse Pierce. And who knows? We could be adding to that list as well. But AJ, the draft is done now. We'll get into it a little bit. I don't know. It's exciting when you've got, a second round pick. So,
yeah.
But let's start here, okay? And I actually wrote about this for my Substack, judzolgad.substack as well. But remember when Craig Leopold, the owner of the Wild, excitedly, and I don't blame him, last fall, I think it was around October 1st, talked about the fact that July 1st, which we are now one day away from, was going to be like Christmas Day. Because the Wild was finally going to have cap space. I think it turns out to be, around $17+ million in cap space. They could go out finally after a couple of years of being hamstrung absolutely or more by the Parise and Suter contracts, and they could be players in the market. And it was going to be great. And then as the season progressed, we're like, you know what you really need, Craig? You really need a center. And at the end of the year, end of the season, I should say, after the playoff loss to Vegas, press conference, Bill Garren said we need to get Joel Eriksson some help at center. So, we're talking a top 6 guy, maybe a top guy there. And then, lo and behold, as we sit here a day from free agency starting on, I think it was Friday after we had done our last show, John Tavares, not surprisingly, returns to Toronto on an incredibly team-friendly deal.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Bennett, not surprisingly, and I don't know that he was ever going to be on the radar, returns to Florida. And we are left now with certainly some scoring wingers available tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say that if you're going to go Brock Besser hunting or chasing, you are going to pay a huge price. And here is the center market that I see right now. This is courtesy of, I think it was Michael Russo and Joe Smith's piece in The Athletic, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The center market that they threw out there, Christian Dvorak, 29, at one time a hot commodity, but certainly not a hot commodity now.
Yeah.
Sean Corelli, 32. Old friend, as they like to say, Nico Sturm, 30.
Is that 2-time Stanley Cup winning?
That is 2-time Stanley Cup winning role player. And Colin Blackwell, 32. And 31-year-old former Dallas Star, most recently a St. Louis Blue, Radek Faksa. So you tell me this, Grinch. Has Christmas been canceled?
We're at a point now, it feels like, where if this is the Grinch steals Christmas, or how the Grinch stole Christmas, the Who's of Minnesota are going to wake up tomorrow, no presents under the tree, not even tree even there, the tinsel ripped off the wall, all the decorations taken out of their homes. But the problem is, I don't think you're going to go stand outside hand in hand and just start singing out of the pure joy of loving the sport of hockey. What's going to happen is immediate anger, immediate reaction, and I think rightfully so, because it feels like as the weekend drew on, it just kind of felt like, okay, they're kind of just sitting on their hands here. They're not really doing, and granted, they might have not been able to do anything, Judd, and I think that's the problem, because it sounds like they do want to move Marco Rossi, but they want to make sure they get a decent package back, but at the same time, they're playing a game of chicken with all of these other teams that know if they just wait a few days, they can pretty much just offer what is essentially a first and a third for Marco Rossi with a qualifying sheet, because he is an RFA. So why would they offer more than that? So is there a massive bidding war that's going to happen for Marco Rossi? I don't think so. And as you and I have talked about in the past, and Jesse has mentioned too, like the St. Louis Blues have essentially made what was once almost a declaration of war against other teams by sending qualifying offers. They made that almost like okay, you're going to be mad at us for a couple months, but at the same time, who cares? I think the last juicy one was when Carolina offer sheeted Kakiniemi from Montreal. And I think you might be muted now, but that had the there was some bad blood there, but like the
Yeah.
recent one, they offer sheeted 2 guys from the Oilers, and it was like, okay, we forget about it a week later. Who cares?
Right. Yeah. No. That one was the Montreal Carolina one was a little bit more, or it was bitter. It started with Sebastian Aho being offered sheeted by Montreal, to which Carolina's like,
Right.
"Thank you, you set the market." Now, if Rossi gets an offer sheet that's not that great, the Wild can match that. So like that would, but I do not expect him to get an. I think he's going to get an. It's become very clear. Bill Garren doesn't want to pay Marco Rossi what Marco Rossi's camp thinks he's worth, and so that's the problem. But the other thing too, so where this to me gets like the timing, it appears just could not be worse. I believe it was Garren's press conference he did last week, where he talked about the fact that what they're finding is nobody wants to really trade to rebuild. Like everyone now is at a place where they're like, we're not, no, we're done there. So if you could exploit 3 or 4 teams previously, Buffalo, hey, go ahead and take Tage Thompson. We'll trade him for these 3 pieces. Garren's point, and if this holds, it's a real problem, is nobody wants to do that. So like we talked about, well, could you offer up, and it's a lot, could you offer up Rossi and Ogren and a draft pick for Tage Thompson? And Garren's trying to say, he's making it very clear, I've offered guys.
Yeah.
And teams won't take the trade. So that's where this gets to be really sticky. And then the problem is, so the centers that I went through, I think we're talking, unless you like Dvorak a lot still, we're talking bottom 6 guys.
Absolutely. There's really not a guy on the market left that should be in the, and granted, we've seen the Minnesota Wild put guys that don't deserve to be in the top 6 be in the top 6 before, but anybody that you sign now that is just like free of charge essentially is not an impact guy. And I guess that kind of goes back to what I felt and you have discussed, like what we have kind of discussed on this show, which is sign sign one of the scoring wingers, whether it's Besser or I think Ehlers, but also now because that's been so whittled down, the market for those guys is going to be inflated.
That's my question. What's your so like it's simple to say it, hey, Brock Besser, come home. Now he is clearly going to be heavily pursued. Like there's talk of the Oilers. He's going to have suitors, a lot of them.
And Winnipeg's going to be on him because they would like to keep Ehlers, but then they're not on him. The Kings are rumored to him, and frankly, I know he's a hometown guy, but he seems like a guy that could kind of love that LA life. Like he looks the part, at least, if that makes sense.
So what's your price point, though? That's the problem. And not just price point. What's your term point? So this is the last year with the new CBA. This is the last year that you can go 8 years to keep a player, which is what I think is going to happen with Carrell here, and 7 years for a free agent. Yeah. Now, that being said, it's now going to go down to, after this, it's going to go down to 7 years to keep a player, max. If that player then becomes a free agent, it's 6 years. But that's my thing is, like, if we're talking about Besser, who's coming off a 25-goal, 50-point season, he's 28. If we're talking about Ehlers, he's 29. So what's your, forget the price, what's your term there? Like, are you going to max him out? Because I'm willing to bet that both those guys are going to get 7-year offers, which at first will be fine, but they're going to be overpaid. This gets to be to what you said, which is the market is at the key positions for the Wild whittled down now. This gets to be a real problem, given the fact that you're basically going shopping at a place that it feels like had a soft launch and everything got bought there. And now it's like our grand opening is here, but it's been picked over quite a bit.
I'll tell you what, I'm nervous that this is setting up to be one of the, Bill Garren's going to have a press availability later this week. Nothing's going to really happen. Well, it didn't really fall in our favor.
Oh yeah, you get that.
And we're going to get to there. So I don't want to ruin the spirits here now, but when it comes to Besser or Ehlers, I think Ehlers is going to get either 6 or 7 years. I would like he's 29. He's a year older, and I think some teams might be a little more wary to offer him the full 7. But at the same time, if the term is right at 6, I bet you he probably takes it. And if he is the animal that I think he is, come his 35-year-old season, he's going to go in with probably some suitors to get him to either year 36, 37. Brock Besser, it sounds like, turned down a 7-year offer from the Canucks. So whether that's just he was so done with Vancouver altogether, or there's a rumor that he wants a shorter term. Him and his team might want something shorter, like in the 4 to 5 years. That might, unfortunately, push it out of the Wild's price point range. And I guess that also depends on if they're going to even get a center at this point or try to trade for one. But if he's gonna get like 8.4 to anywhere to like 8.8 a year, that's tough. Like it's gonna be tough to figure out how the Wild make that happen, and then also either sign Marco Rossi to some sort of bridge deal or trade and acquire somebody of note, because anybody of note is going to have at least 7.5 or higher to their term that they're absorbing. So it's this whole, you don't know exactly what you can do until you make this move. Nikolai Ehlers is expected to make about 8.1 million over like a 6-year contract. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But when it comes like to what you can do after it, Judd, I guess we were sort of texting about this. This is very much setting up to where you're going to have to plan another shopping trip. Like you're already looking almost, unfortunately, to like what the 2026 summer offers for free agents. And there's a couple notable guys, but it's just so depressing that we've already shifted. We're not even at July 1st here yet. And I already feel like the Wild are out of the conversation for something like, I don't know.
But the centers are all gone. That's the problem.
That's the biggest
all
problem.
All of the centers are gone. Besser is going to be Besser and Ehlers and probably Marchand if he even gets to market, because it sounds like he'd like to go back to the Panthers if possible, are going to be the bells of the ball. So the list that the Athletic had of wingers, okay, obviously Besser, Ehlers, Patrick Kane, but he's 36.
I heard he's more than likely sending back with Detroit as well,
which makes sense.
Yeah.
Marchand, who again probably, I mean, he has been tied to the Wild by nobody. It sounds like if he gets to market, the Bruins are going to re-pursue him, and the Maple Leafs.
Yes,
as a possibility.
There's 2 to 3 teams, and none of them are named Minnesota Wild.
So this list came out a couple of days ago. Claude Giroux was on it. He's more of a winger than a center now. A marvelous face-off man. Unfortunately, he is now off the market because he went back on, again, a John Tavares. John Tavares and Claude Giroux are cutting their old teams these incredible deals. So Giroux, who is 37, goes back to the Senators on a 1-year, really, really cheap contract. And then the last name, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 names. The last name is 40-year-old Corey Perry. I mean, sorry, doesn't do he's a good playoff player, but don't forget, we still don't know exactly why he was essentially kicked off the Blackhawks. So that's the list. That's like their top list. And I'm with you. I'm fascinated to see if there is a trade here, and if the Wild is going to end up having to overpay. And the issue with Rossi is you cannot now, he is not an arbitration eligible player. So you can offer him a contract, but he has to say yes. He can hold out. He can sign an offer sheet, which I think if we get to tomorrow is increasing possibility. And you pointed this out. Yeah, depending on what the offer sheet is, you could get a pretty good return of draft picks, but you're not, that's for the future. You want help right now. It's just a really interesting conundrum in which this team finds itself. And Bill Guerin's going to have to do some quick dancing to get out of the conundrum. And I don't know it's possible, at least right now, for the 2025-26 season.
And the thing about it, too, is, think about how varying the value for the draft picks you could potentially get on an offer sheet. Because if it's the San Jose Sharks or the Chicago Blackhawks that are giving him a qualifying offer, those picks mean way more than if it was potentially Panthers, Oilers. One of those two teams. Like you're talking either high first round or end of the first round, essentially a second round pick at that point. And that does major like swings here and there for if you are trying to move those picks for a guy, which is why I was really anticipating some sort of Friday night move by the Wild to kind of, and granted they didn't have a first round pick, so it kind of
barely anything. Like
but
there's no trades for the most part. There's no trades of substance.
Small tangent here, but I don't know about you, and I got duped. Like I was sitting there Friday night feeling dumb, but I feel like a lot of other hockey fans probably got it. We had notable like national people, and I'm not going to name anybody in particular, that were hyping this draft up all Friday morning, even Thursday night. If I'm hearing if even half the deals that happened that I'm hearing, Friday night's going to be one of the craziest first rounds. That was so boring. It took 5 hours.
Oh, the idea for the draft.
It was awkward. There were technical difficulties.
Decentralized was terrible.
I feel duped. There
was nothing going on. Like there was nothing. What John Gibson got traded, and he's my age,
and that was day 2. Was that not day 2?
I thought it was day. It doesn't matter. Like nothing of true substance really happened. And yeah, the coverage. The idea for their first decentralized draft where everyone's at their own headquarters and you're doing this dog and pony show with the living room where the kids would step in there and
the sliding door opens. Yeah.
It was just awful. And look, NHL, get your act together. I don't care if you have everyone at the draft or not. Here is your mission. Go as quick as possible. Just go as quick as possible, which means announce the kid, announce the pick. That's fine. Have the kid talk to a professional interviewer and then go to the next pick. Let's quit trying to drag these things out. You're not football, okay? You're not football.
Yeah.
NBA, go back to 1 night, 2 rounds, quick. Your whole mission, if you are not the National Football League, should be how do we get this done as quickly as possible? We're going to get ratings. Oh, screw you. You're hockey. You got no chance. Oh, and one other thing, too, is local or U.S. carrier. So ESPN, carry the Canadian product. Carry the Canadian. Everything Canada does, aside from the TNT studio show, they do better. So just carry it. Like, let's not, all due respect to everybody that worked on the panel there, it's cheaper. Just pick up whatever Sportsnet is doing and be fine with that. Quite frankly, I wish they would do that for the Stanley Cup Finals. I'd much rather see the Canadian version. You always see, like, on Twitter, like, the production, like, here's something that happened, and it's like, I didn't get to see that. And it's like some, like, off the, somebody yelling at someone on the bench, and inevitably the U.S. people always miss it. And Canada's like, well, here's what happened. Just carry the Canadian coverage and get it done quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was a weird tangent, but like we didn't hear.
Not a weird tangent at all. I'm glad you brought it up. You're 100% correct.
It's just I felt a little put off by the fact that this was hyped up, and yeah, you're exactly right. It's not football. I don't need to see James Hagan try to Skype with the Bruins GM. You know who wants to see their a player talk to their GM? The fan base. That should go on social media or YouTube of that after the game. Don't force that on me. Get to the next pick. Just go.
The phone call. Yes, which football does a great job of.
Yes, exactly.
Like Kevin O'Connell calls the kid they're drafting. You never see that on TV. You're exactly right.
But Seahawks fans don't care about that call. That's
correct.
Vikings fans, but now that we are after the draft here now, and nothing happened for the Wild.
Yep.
My biggest question, I think, sitting there watching the final 6th and 7th rounds on Saturday, which was, did any team have a altering in their franchise enough by missing a guy, missing a pick, or a pick that was made that maybe they got kind of the clock wound down and they needed to make somebody or take somebody? Mm-hmm. Did anybody take somebody or miss out on somebody enough to where they feel now I have to go out and trade for a Marco Rossi? Now I have to do that before so I can guarantee I get his signing rights and no other team can even offer. I don't think so. I don't think so, which is why it was so shocking to me that they didn't try to move him. Even just we know at this point you're probably going to have to take a 80 cents on the dollar type of move, but you didn't move him.
You can't do that then. You can't.
like
you don't have,
yeah.
he is your best, center next to Eck. You cannot give him away for anything other than you win the trade, which, by the way, you're not going to do now.
No.
So, and that's why I said, okay, and we've talked about this, it could be a much bigger trade. But what Bill Garren is telling you, unless he is playing coy, is no one wants to make those trades right now. Like, this is as stuck as you can possibly be. Um, the preview of the movie was fantastic, and the movie's a dud. And so unless you're gonna turn around and do something we do not see coming, which is entirely possible, you are absolutely stuck. Let's get on to some news notes of things that came out as well.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll touch on the draft briefly. I don't think it's all that intriguing. I mean, you had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks. Anyway, Jonas Brodin is hurt again. So at some point in time, he had, I think, what Bill Garren described as a nagging injury that he aggravated after he played for Sweden in the World Championship. So don't blame international competition. He was fine. He was absolutely fine. He had surgery for an upper body injury a couple of weeks ago, according to reports, and likely will miss the start of the 25-26 season. I think we discussed this last week without knowing this.
Mm-hmm.
God bless the guy. Great skater, been a really good defenseman for a long time. I actually think he's one of the best I think he's one of the best NHL defensemen ever to play for a Minnesota team. So the North Stars or Wild. But you can't trust him anymore. Like, it's his body's breaking down. This to me, so he's going to, it sounds like, miss the start of the season, which I'm taking that to mean regular season games.
Yeah.
He is you rely on him as one of your most important foundational pieces on defense. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can't trust him anymore, man. You just can't. He is hurt so much now, and it's been a pattern, that this is a huge concern, in my opinion, unless you've got defensemen who are ready to ascend. But, for all we've been saying, well, they've got deep defensive depth, and they do have some. The Brodin thing, to me, a massive issue, and Bill Garren has now said that he wants to add blue line depth after trading Declan Chisholm, the restricted free agent, to Washington, because I think that they thought that his price point was going to be too high.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really know what the market would be like for Declan Chisholm, but it always felt like he played better than what we saw towards the end of the season. And especially, he played better in a top 4 role rather than on that bottom 3rd pairing, which is kind of odd. So does that mean he is just dependent on having somebody pretty quality next to him? That's for now, I guess, Washington to find out. But
right.
You make the move, moving him out, essentially with the knowledge that Brodin is going to miss time. So like, they clearly feel like they have a plan or can rely. And I think one of the comments Russo reported is that out of the scrum and press availability after the draft, which is Bill Garren acknowledges Carson Lambos and some, I can't remember the other name
Spacek,
he mentioned, but David Spacek now like move up on that depth chart role. The problem here is I'm not sure any of those guys are necessarily going to be guys you can trust in the NHL. Like, Lambos was a 1st-round pick, if my memory serves correctly. And then after kind of battling injury and whatnot, his development never really took that next step or two. Spacek is interesting because he's had some flashes, but it seems like, and you saw it with their first pick in the 2nd round, Hallquist. It's like, okay, what you're drafting there is not a flashy guy by any means. He generates offense by moving the puck up ice, but he's essentially a shutdown defenseman. Like, that's just essentially, it's kind of a Jonas Brodin 2.0, but taken a round and a half later, essentially. So, the rest of the draft is whatever, but that pick for me doesn't even really move the needle for me. It's tough to be excited about a pick when your first one comes at like in the 50s of the draft. Like, you're not really.
I think he's in Sweden for like 2 more years too. He
Absolutely.
is so like, he's not, and that's the thing. Unless you're like a top 10 pick or a top 5 pick, you don't play immediately almost ever. Like so, but here am I.
I was gonna say, when it comes to Brodin, like it just now, it's exactly what we've kind of hinted at, and maybe this is why I tried to force him out in my like mock trade sim thing that I was doing last week with Buffalo, where I like when he's on the ice, he's fantastic. And he is a really quality guy to have on that blue line. The problem is he's just now at this stage of his career, he's not on the ice enough to be a guy that you can look to every single night. He's just not that reliable in that sense. On the ice, incredibly reliable. His availability is very questionable, and that puts the Wild now in a tough spot. And I would say they're maybe in a better situation because it sounds like they're expecting him back at some point, but who knows the re-injury. Whereas like Vegas, we found out Pietrangelo is going to be done for the whole season already.
Yeah, and we've got the Olympics too. So like, is he going to go?
And you know he's going to be good for that.
Yeah. So here's what I've got for the projected opening night defensive pairings with Brodin out. Okay.
Okay.
Faber on the right side of the first pairing. Middleton on the left side. Second pairing, Spurgeon on the right side, Bouillon on the left side. Mm-hmm. But then the third pairing now, unless Lambos is ready to play and is like good, is Bogosian and Juracek. And by the way, on Juracek, you better damn well hope he's really, really good. Like, there's a lot of conflicting opinions, which is why Columbus traded him as the 6th pick, and the Wild gave up a boatload, and then Garren now saying, I want to go add depth there, which, I mean, they can sign a guy as well. But you know, it's funny because with Brodin, it's like, oh, okay, you've got, I don't know what, Brodin Faber, Middleton Spurgeon, Juracek Bouillon or something, or now you take one piece of the puzzle out, and it's really, really a different look there. And so you're going to go get a depth guy, but here's what concerns me. Are you going to go get John Merrill 2.0, Bogosian 2.0? We can trust him. We can rely on him. But, you know, then push comes to shove in the playoffs and you play him because you think that, oh, it's a veteran guy and it doesn't work out. Again, I hate to say this because tomorrow's supposed to be so much fun. And perhaps I'm just being, because I am naturally a pessimist here, but it feels like nothing is like it was supposed to have been. And I don't know how you get out of this. And I don't know that there's any, like, unless there's some type of trade that we don't see coming that's going to be pulled off. It's just very hard for me to see how you're going to dig your way out of some of these problems that you thought would not be presented because of what you thought was going to happen.
Yeah, and this is where now, and especially because we've talked about like this window that has shifted, and I mean, how many times over the past season that we've done shows, or like even a live show after a game, and then it's just comments like, "Well, why aren't you bringing up Bill Garren?" Like, well, because at that point we knew his job was safe and everything like that. Now it's like here moving forward, the moves or lack thereof, I think very much the spotlight and the heat lamp essentially turns up on Bill Garren, because if you not the old expression of like no answer is an answer, that sort of applies here, because no move is a move, and that tells me that like you read a book and it's fantastic, but then they make a movie adaptation of that, and you watch the trailer and you're like, oh, this is gonna be terrible. That's what I feel like we're walking into now. Like the book we read, and like you said, the trailer we saw at one point was fantastic, and they laid out this plan, and you had plan A and B and C, and if maybe C doesn't go perfectly, you have C2, and then you can branch off here, and we have all these different routes. But now, as leading up to the draft, this guy extends, this guy signs, this guy whatever, into the draft, you don't make a move. Okay, we're down to plans maybe A and B, and now other guys are off the board. You have one plan now, and you have to execute. And even then, I'm not even sure plan A, which probably now is like plan F3, that doesn't seem like, one, probably the best route for this team anymore. Two, that all like high probability is not there, because sure, you can go sign a winger. That might be the highest % chance of something happening, of them obtaining a Brock Besser or Nikolai Ehlers.
Sure.
After that, though, it's seeming more and more like they're going to have to try to mend this probably unsolvable bridge between them and Marco Rossi, where they've pretty much said, look, we don't like you. You're too small for us. We want to put you in the fourth line of the playoffs.
Too expensive.
You're too expensive for us.
Yeah.
And now we're also seeing some deals where it's like Marco Rossi is a way better player than this guy.
And teams know that, and he is eligible. Like if you are willing to, I believe the most probable, if he signs an offer sheet elsewhere, I think it's the most probably like a first and third round pick,
Mm-hmm.
which is does you no good immediately. And now you've lost like Marco Rossi. If you redo the center market with RFAs and UFAs, he's one of the best centers out there. You've got him, but he has the ability to screw you. So like, yeah. Last thing, did you find it as interesting? Speaking of size. The Wild's second pick, which was a fourth round pick, their second pick in the draft at 102 was a center by the name of Adam Benek, who has played in the USHL. He's from the Czech Republic. He is 5'8", 164. Did you find that as amusing as I did that they drafted a kid with their second pick in the draft, their second pick, who's 5'8"?
Here's what I'll say first. Let me correct you. 5'7.25" to be exact. That is the official measurement from the combine, to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Yeah, that pick was made, and they threw up the graphic. I had the NHL Network on, and they threw up the graphic of like the player profile, and I had to I stood up off the couch and I waltered over, and I had to get close. I was like, "There's no way that says 5'7". What do we? How tone deaf? Like I'm sorry, but first off, did you know this is the first time, and I think since like 2002, not a defenseman under 6 foot was drafted. That's a
well. I mean, you look at the winning teams,
and so that's one thing. And granted, this is a center.
Yeah.
But it seems very tone deaf given their certain situations.
It just flies in the face of everything we thought that they believed going, but anyway, I just found it hilarious because it's like, and yes, I understand the major sticking point with Marco Rossi is price point, but I just thought it was hilarious that we've talked about, well, he's not that big a guy and you drafted the guy, and who knows? I mean, this kid can score. So, but I thought it was hilarious that they drafted a guy who goes as far against the Bill Garren philosophy on size as you can possibly get.
Yeah, and the thing I love about it too is like when you watch like the broadcast, they're not going to really say the bad parts about a guy. They highlight what's good, and he does have some good stuff. Which credit to him, like he's a great playmaker. It sounds like he is the pass to score guy. But when you look at like the articles written and stuff, that's when they really get into because you're not on TV, you're not going to have that backlash as much.
The Canadians will rip them.
Oh,
the Canadian telecast will rip them.
As soon as you get to print about this guy, it's like, hey, he competes really hard and he's got like some dynamic skill at times.
Yeah.
But it circles back to he's just not big enough to probably have
Athletic
it translate
basically
to the
said,
NHL.
I don't see his skill set translating to the National Hockey League, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, you were exactly right. So it's just funny given their situation that is. Was he the best player available? Maybe. There was probably some
flies in the face of everything you supposedly believe.
Yeah, like who was Bill Garren out of the room for that pick? Like who called that one in?
Well, Judd Brackett, who's got a lot of credibility as a draft guy coming from the Canucks, and now he's been here like 3 years. He's got a ton of credibility. That's what I'll say, but it just feels very weird. It feels like a kid who's 5'7" and 3/4 or something like that would get crossed off a list of a team that doesn't believe in going with smaller guys. But anyway, okay, so here's the schedule again. JHS busy week. If the Wild makes a trade today on Monday, we'll come back, probably a live show, and talk about that, react to that. Definitely do a show tomorrow. If the Wild makes a splash signing so free agency starts 11 a.m. Central Time. I will be recording with Phil and Declan on our different shows, but if there's a Besser signing, if there is we will go live, I will drop off, I will leave my friends, I will depart, and I will join you, and we will do a live show. So if the Wild does make a splash, we'll definitely react to it in real time. And then, of course, back on Wednesday, as usual, with Jesse Pierce, and throughout the rest of the week, if there's trades, if there's more signings, although I would expect the big splash ones to be done within at least 2 days, if not 1 day. But a lot of JHS this week in what should have been a very exciting week if the free agent class hadn't been picked over like a sale at an outlet mall. Very disappointing there, but we will talk to you soon.